She stood motionless at the edge of the property, her hands tucked deep into her coat pockets as the wind whipped through the trees. The cold bit at her cheeks, and she blinked against it, trying not to let the tears gather again. There was no room for weakness now, not after everything. Behind her, the crunch of tires on gravel made her spine stiffen. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. The rhythm of those steps, measured, confident, familiar, in a way that still made her chest ache. "You came," she said without turning. The man stopped beside her. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he looked out at the house in front of them, large, elegant, and painfully silent. Once, it had been full of life, laughter, echoes of shared meals, and whispered promises in the hallway. "I said I would," he finally replied. His voice was soft, but the weight behind it was unmistakable. He glanced sideways at her, catching the shadow in her eyes. "You don't have to do this alone," she exhaled, slow and uneven, the fog of her breath curling in the air. "Maybe I should. You don't believe that?" She looked at him now, really looked. He hadn't changed much. Same dark eyes, same cautious calm. But there was something in his posture now, something more grounded, like he had spent the last few years learning how to hold pain without letting it consume him. "Everything's changed," she whispered. "Not everything," he said. Her gaze fell back to the house. She could see the curtains in the front window, the way they swayed slightly as if moved by unseen hands. Her fingers clenched inside her pockets. "She's in there," she said, "and I haven't seen her in almost 5 years. Then let's fix that." She shook her head. "It's not that simple." "It never is," he replied, stepping a little closer. "But that doesn't mean it's not worth doing." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to reach back and rewind the years, to undo all the sharp words and silences that had replaced conversation. But life had marched forward, and now here she was, standing at the edge of something that could break her all over again. "She hates me," she said. "I left. You had to. She was 12, and I left." He didn't argue, didn't tell her it wasn't her fault, or that she'd done the best she could. He simply stood beside her in silence, letting her breathe through it. The wind tugged at her hair, and somewhere in the distance a bird called out, high and lonely. She felt like that sometimes, a sound carried too far from its source. "I don't know what I'm even supposed to say," she admitted. "Start with hello." She gave a shaky laugh. "Hello isn't enough." "Then say what you need to say. Let her yell. Let her cry. Let her be angry. But give her the chance. And if she doesn't want it, then at least you'll know you tried." She turned toward him then, her expression brittle. "Why are you here, really?" He didn't flinch. "Because you called. And because I remember what it looked like when you were her age, standing at a door just like this one, waiting for someone to come back who never did." The air between them shifted, heavier now, full of unsaid things. She swallowed hard and looked away again, staring at the steps that led to the porch. "I'm scared," she said. "I know." She took a deep breath, one step, then another. The gravel crunched under her boots. When she reached the bottom of the stairs, she paused. Behind her, he remained at a distance, not pressing, not pulling. He raised her hand to knock, but the door opened before she touched it. A girl stood there, taller now, sharper in the jaw, eyes older than they should have been. Her arms were crossed, and her expression unreadable. "Hi," the woman said, her voice cracking. The girl didn't move, didn't speak. I wasn't sure if I should come, but I needed to see you, just once, even if you don't want." "You left." The words landed like a punch. "I know," the woman whispered, and I've regretted it every day. The girl's eyes narrowed. Then why now? Because I finally had the courage to face what I ran from. Silence. The wind rustled the branches overhead. A dog barked down the street. The world kept moving while they stood frozen in the doorway. I don't forgive you, the girl said. The woman nodded. I don't expect you to. I wanted you to know that I love you. Always have. More silence. And then the girl stepped back, not far, just enough. The woman hesitated, then stepped forward into the house. Behind her, the man on the gravel exhaled, his eyes closing briefly. Sometimes healing began not with answers, but with a single open door. The door clicked softly shut behind her. Inside, the house smelled faintly of lavender and something baking. Cookies, maybe, or bread. She remembered that scent. It was the same air she used to breathe when tucking her daughter in at night, when singing lullabies barely above a whisper. But now, the girl who used to crawl into her lap with scraped knees and wide eyes was standing in front of her like a stranger wearing familiar features. Do you want something to drink? The girl asked flatly, almost mechanically. The woman blinked, caught off guard. Sure, if it's not too much trouble. The girl disappeared into the kitchen, and the woman followed slowly, her steps hesitant. Everything felt rearranged. Same walls, different colors, same table, new chairs. The past had been polished away and repainted. In the kitchen, the girl poured juice into 2 glasses without looking up. Her movements were deliberate, practiced, too adult. You've grown, the woman said quietly. The girl didn't respond. I used to imagine what you'd look like now. I'd picture your hair longer, your eyes sharper. But I never got it right. Still, no answer. The girl handed her a glass and sat at the far end of the table. The woman mirrored her. Both of them hunched slightly, like people expecting bad news. Your grandmother. She kept me updated sometimes. Little things. Report cards. Photos. So you knew, the girl said. Her tone wasn't angry. It was colder than that, disappointed. I knew pieces. I wasn't strong enough to know more. That's not how it works. The woman swallowed. I know. They sat in silence. Sipping juice, neither of them wanted. A clock ticked somewhere down the hall, filling the space between them. I don't know how to do this, the woman finally admitted. I don't know what you want me to say. Why did you really leave? I told myself it was to protect you. I thought you were better off without my chaos, without my brokenness. But I wasn't. I see that now, and I'm sorry. For everything. The girl looked down at her glass. Her hands were trembling. You said you loved me. I do. Then why didn't you fight for me? The woman inhaled sharply. That question had haunted her dreams for years. Because I was ashamed. Because I thought I'd ruined everything. And because I believed you deserved something better than what I had to give. That wasn't your choice. I know. The girl's voice cracked then, the first break in her armor. I needed you. Tears spilled down the woman's cheeks before she could stop them. She reached across the table, but stopped short, hand hovering, unsure. The girl looked at her, really looked, and for a second, the wall between them thinned. I used to talk to your picture, she said, every night. I told you about my day, about the kids at school. I asked you to come back. The woman lowered her hand, letting it rest flat against the table. I wish I had. I used to think maybe you died. It hurt less than believing you just left. The woman flinched. I never stopped thinking about you. Every day. I just didn't know how to come back. The girl wiped her eyes with the back of her sleeve, sniffling. You don't get to show up and fix everything in one visit. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just trying to be here now. And after this, I'll do whatever you want. If you want space, I'll give it. If you want time, I'll wait. But I won't disappear again." The girl stood abruptly and walked toward the window, arms crossed over her chest. Outside, the man still stood on the gravel, waiting. Who is he? A friend? Someone who reminded me that there's still time to make things right. The girl glanced back. Does he know everything? He knows enough, and he stayed anyway. Silence again. "You should go," the girl said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. The woman nodded slowly, her chest tightening. "Okay." She stood, leaving the glass untouched on the table. "I'm glad you opened the door." The girl didn't respond. But she didn't tell her not to come back either. That was something. The woman walked back to the front door, each step heavier than the last. As she opened it, the cold air rushed in again, stinging her eyes. The man looked up, waiting. When she stepped outside, she didn't speak. He opened the passenger door and let her in, saying nothing. As they drove away, she looked back once, just in time to see the curtains shift in the window. The girl was watching. The drive was silent for a long time. Not the kind of silence that demanded to be broken, but the kind that allowed things to settle. She stared out the window, her thoughts tangled like threads knotted at the core. The man drove steadily, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on his knee. He didn't ask questions, didn't glance at her, just drove. When they reached the small motel outside of town, he parked and turned off the engine. The heater clicked softly as it cooled. She sat still, staring at the faded neon sign that buzzed faintly above the office. The place hadn't changed, not since she left. "You okay?" he finally asked, voice low. She nodded, then shook her head. "I don't know. You don't have to figure it out tonight. I don't think I can figure it out at all." He got out and walked around to her side, opening the door. She stepped out slowly, legs stiff, mind heavier. Together they walked to the room, past flower pots full of dried soil, past windows covered in thick blinds. She had stayed here once, years ago, when she was trying to disappear. Now she was back, trying to come back to life. Inside, the room was clean but plain. 2 beds, a desk, a lamp. A faded landscape painting hung crooked on the wall. She sat on the edge of the bed, pulling her coat tighter around her. The man placed her bag beside the door, then turned to her. "Do you want me to stay?" She hesitated, then shook her head. Thank you, though." He nodded once, reached into his coat pocket, and handed her a folded envelope. "This is for tomorrow. Directions, schedule, the paperwork you'll need. Just in case." She took it, her fingers brushing his. "You think they'll let me see her again?" I think she didn't slam the door. She exhaled sharply. That's not a yes. It's not a no either. He gave her a faint smile, then turned toward the door. "Get some sleep. I'll pick you up in the morning." "Okay." He paused, hand on the knob. "You did the hard part today. Tomorrow, we'll keep going." The door closed behind him. She sat for a long time, staring at the envelope in her lap. She didn't open it. Instead, she stood, walked to the sink, and splashed cold water on her face. Her reflection looked back, hollow-eyed and worn, but not gone. She pulled the covers back and climbed into bed fully clothed, wrapping the blanket tightly around her. Her eyes burned, but the tears didn't come, only exhaustion. When she woke, it was still dark. She checked the clock, 5:17 a.m. Outside, the world was hushed. No cars, no footsteps, just the whisper of wind brushing the motel walls. She sat up slowly, The envelope was still on the nightstand. She opened it with careful hands, like it might explode. Inside were a map, a handwritten schedule, and a legal notice. She read everything twice, then once more. When the knock came at 6:30, she was ready. The man was waiting outside with 2 cups of coffee. "Still like it black?" he asked. She gave him a small smile. "Always." The drive back to town was quiet again, but different. The silence wasn't heavy this time. It was braced with anticipation. She sipped her coffee, hands steady now. She had decided something in the night. She would show up, even if she didn't know what came next. When they pulled up in front of the courthouse, her stomach twisted. The building loomed, square and gray, with glass doors that reflected her image like a warning. She took a deep breath and stepped out. Inside, the halls were cold. They walked slowly, past rows of benches and echoing footsteps. The man led her to a side room, small, windowless. A lawyer waited inside, friendly but firm. They reviewed papers, confirmed times, prepared. "You don't have to say much," the lawyer said gently. "Just be honest." She nodded. The hearing room was smaller than she remembered, intimate, cruel in its closeness. When her daughter entered, the air shifted. She sat on the far side, beside her father. The woman felt the heat of his glare from across the room, but didn't meet it. Her eyes were on the girl, no longer a child, not yet a woman, caught in between, wearing pain like armor. The judge entered. Everyone stood, then sat. Words passed like currents, petitions, claims, statements. The girl was asked questions. She answered carefully, eyes flicking between her parents. Then the woman was called. She stood slowly, legs heavy, and walked to the front. Her voice wavered. Her hands shook. But she didn't lie. She told the truth, the ugly parts and the broken ones. She said what she had done wrong, what she regretted, what she wished she could take back, and what she still hoped for. When she was finished, the room was quiet. The judge nodded once and dismissed them for the day. Outside, the sun was setting. The woman walked toward the parking lot, heart thudding. She didn't look back. But she didn't need to. A voice called softly behind her, "Wait." She turned. The girl stood there. "Can we talk?" They found a quiet bench outside the courthouse, just beyond the edge of the parking lot, half shielded by a row of tall shrubs. The sun had already dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the concrete. The woman sat first, her hands clasped in her lap, knuckles white. Her daughter hesitated, then sat beside her, keeping a small space between them. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then the girl asked, almost too quietly to hear, "Why now?" The woman swallowed hard. "Because I couldn't stay away anymore. Because you deserve to know the truth. Not from a file. Not from anyone else. From me." The girl looked down at her shoes, scuffing the toe of one against the gravel. "He said you left because you didn't love us." The words cut deep, but the woman didn't flinch. She had rehearsed this in her head too many times to count. "I never stopped loving you. I left because I was drowning. And I didn't want to pull you under with me." "You could have tried harder," her daughter said, her voice tight, her jaw set. "I needed you." "I know," the woman said. "And I live with that every day. You didn't deserve the silence. I didn't know how to be better then, but I want to be better now." The girl's shoulders tightened, her hands balled into fists in her lap. "He told me you were selfish. That you lied. That you hurt people." The woman didn't argue. "Some of that's true. I did hurt people. I lied to myself more than anyone. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just hiding. I let fear, decide everything. Her daughter blinked hard, looking away. The woman leaned forward slightly. But I'm here now, not to erase the past, not to ask for forgiveness I haven't earned. I want to know you. I want to be someone you can talk to. Maybe not today, maybe not soon, but eventually. Silence settled again. The wind picked up, brushing strands of hair across the girl's face. You missed a lot, she said at last. I know. School stuff, my birthday, when I broke my arm. I know. And when I got my period, he didn't even know what to do. I had to Google everything. The woman felt a sharp twist in her chest. I should have been there. You weren't, the girl said, but her voice was softer now. They sat like that, suspended in a fragile sort of calm. The sun dipped lower. Car doors slammed somewhere in the distance. A dog barked. Then the girl reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out something small. A folded piece of paper. She held it out. The woman took it with shaking fingers. It was a drawing, pencil on notebook paper. A woman and a child sitting side by side on a bench, stick figures simple. Above them were 2 words, written in looping, uneven print. Maybe someday. The woman blinked hard, her vision blurring. The girl stood. I don't know what happens next, she said, but I wanted to hear your voice. Just once. That's why I said yes today. The woman rose too, holding the drawing close. Thank you, she said, the words catching on a whisper. That's more than I ever thought I'd get. The girl shrugged. Don't mess it up. She turned and walked away. The woman stayed still for a moment, heart trembling. Then she glanced down at the drawing again. Her first gift in years. Her first hope. The man was waiting by the car, watching her approach. He didn't say anything, just opened the door. She slid into the passenger seat, hands still clutching the paper. As they pulled onto the road, she finally exhaled. Back at the motel, she sat on the bed and unfolded the drawing again. She studied the lines, the handwriting. She traced the words someday with her thumb. Then she reached into her bag and took out a journal. She wrote her daughter's name on the first page. Not an apology, not an explanation, just a beginning. Then she started to write. Not about what she had done, but about who she wanted to become. 3 weeks passed. The bench meeting became a point of gravity in the woman's life. Everything began to orbit around it, not out of obligation, but out of quiet purpose. She stopped asking what was too late and started asking what was still possible. She wasn't trying to be a mother again. She was trying to become someone worth knowing. Each day she wrote, not to defend herself, not to prove anything, just to offer. Bits of truth, pieces of memory. Things her daughter never got to ask, and she had never had the courage to say. She mailed the first letter a week after that bench meeting. No return address, just her daughter's name, and a small drawing inside. 2 stick figures holding hands. On the back, still hoping for someday. No reply came, not right away, but she kept writing. The motel manager offered her a part-time job, cleaning rooms. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest, steady. She took it without hesitation. For the first time in years, she welcomed the ache of her muscles and the smell of bleach. It made her feel real. One morning, as she was scrubbing the bathroom floor in room 6, the front desk buzzed. A package had arrived. Inside was a book, a used copy of The Secret Garden. On the first page, written in pencil, "You always said we'd read this together." I never forgot. She sat on the edge of her bed, clutching the book like it might vanish. That was the reply. No explanation, no promises, just a thread across the space between them. She kept working, kept writing. A few days later, another note came. If I gave you 5 minutes, what would you say? Her hands trembled as she folded the paper. She didn't answer right away. She waited until she knew. Then she wrote, I'd say I was broken, but not because of you. I'd say I'm not asking for the past back, just a single moment in the future. I'd say your voice at that bench was the bravest sound I've ever heard. And I'd say, I love you, whether or not you ever say it back. No signature, just the letter. This time, she hand-delivered it, tucking it gently into the mailbox outside the townhouse with the red shutters. Then she turned and walked away. She didn't check her phone, didn't hover. She just waited. Another week passed. Then came the message, a text, just one sentence. I'm not ready for 5 minutes, but maybe 2. She laughed, then cried. They met at the park, neutral ground. Her daughter brought a thermos of cocoa and a blanket. They sat in the shade and talked about nothing and everything, about school, about books, about how hard it is to forgive someone who never said sorry. So the woman said it, not in some grand speech, just 3 words, spoken softly. I'm so sorry. Her daughter didn't respond, not in words, but she poured her a second cup of cocoa and didn't move away when their arms touched. That night, the woman didn't go back to the motel. She sat in the park alone long after her daughter left, watching the stars peek through the clouds. Her fingers ran over the rim of the thermos she'd been allowed to keep. She felt the shift, no longer chasing forgiveness, just building something new. Months passed. The visits became regular, a ritual, sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes a walk. Once, a movie with awkward silences and too much popcorn. Each time, the distance between them shrank. Never forced, never rushed. Just real. By summer, the woman had saved enough to rent a small apartment. Nothing special. But it had a window seat and enough light for houseplants. She framed the drawing from the bench and hung it on the wall. Maybe someday. It reminded her every morning that progress was made in inches. Then, on a Wednesday in late July, her daughter knocked on the door. No warning. Just stood there, ponytail loose, holding a plastic grocery bag. I brought tea, she said, and for the first time she stepped inside. They didn't talk about what that meant. They didn't need to. They sat in the kitchen, sipping sweet tea from chipped mugs, laughing about nothing. There was no ceremony, no big moment, just presence. And when the girl got up to leave, she paused in the doorway, looked back, and said, I think I'm ready for 5 minutes now. The woman smiled. I'll take whatever you give. And that was everything.